Welcome back to Clear Vision Television. We're here with Timothy Eerie out in Florida right now. How's the day going?
Oh, it's going great. I just got done with a yoga class. I feel good.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
What kind of yoga did you do today?
So it's called yin yoga, and so it involves like a lot of meditation and it's in a heated room and you hold positions for like a really long time. And I sweat my entire soul out of my body, I think.
Oh shit. Do you ever have like visuals during that experience?
Not I didn't have any visuals. I did have my eyes shut for a lot of it, and I had some kind of experience that would be hard to describe.
Yeah,
Um, but it was um, I had a really good feeling at one point in one of the poses where I just felt sort of euphoric. I guess. Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It was
That's
a trip.
awesome. I would say like a lot of people, even outside of music, you can have like experiences that are considered psychedelic without having to take psychedelics. Would you consider like yoga to be one of those things?
Yeah, definitely. I think that um, working out or exercising especially can bring you into the moment. It's like it's sort of like a mindful thing, and there's something about yoga in particular that's even more mindful, and a lot of the music that they play in the class I think has something to do with that too. It's a lot of like drone. There will be tracks with sitar and flute. It has a very ethereal sound to it, and it all comes together in a really sort of psychedelic way.
Yeah, it creates that like immersive experience with the music and everything.
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of elements to it that I don't know, it can be pretty trippy. I had a weird experience recently going where the instructor had a he had a bowl. It's one of these like singing bowls, and he started ripping on that thing, and I was just like not ready for it. It was so loud and so powerful that it was actually unpleasant. Like it was felt like I was just getting like launched into, hyperspace or something, and I was just like not expecting that.
Yeah.
I think in the right setting it would have been actually really good, but when you're not ready for it, it's something else. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it can get weird for sure.
How did you first start getting into like recording music?
Well, I've been playing music forever. Started playing guitar when I was about 13 years old, and um, probably a couple years after that, I decided I wanted to be able to record. So I at a pretty young age, acquired a recording setup with my computer and taught myself how to use it over the course of a few years. It's like learning a whole nother instrument, and it's a whole other language. And once I
Yeah.
sort of got that down, I just started recording a lot. Um, I've always felt like every musician should be able to record somehow or another, um, whether they're just demos or full albums, whatever it may be. So I felt like it was really important to be able to do that, and now after a certain point I was writing my own music and using recording as a way to write, and just kind of bounce ideas, sort of get them down on paper, so to speak, and then listen back and sort of refine them that way. So the studio is like, it's an instrument, and so to this day, we get a lot of opportunities to record at studios and things like that. But I way prefer just recording myself,
Yeah,
um, just doing it on my own. Still, like a lot of the stuff I record is just in my bedroom, and that's kind of just
real.
where I feel most comfortable being creative.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean, it was just it was a long process that started with me playing guitar, acquiring some recording gear, and then just learning how to write songs from there.
Yeah, that's so cool. Like all your recordings, I've heard a lot of the early ones, especially with Timothy Eerie, are like had that raw, like analog sound that other bands like Frankie and the Witch Fingers or like old school psychedelic bands have. Have you always used like Timothy Eerie as your moniker for the music you record?
Pretty much. It's been a while since I started doing Timothy Eerie. I played in a bunch of little bands before that with my friends in garages, and got some experience playing shows. But it can be challenging to collaborate with people, um, if you have a really clear idea of what you want to do. And as I developed my own vision, I realized I should maybe sort of like make my own band. And the idea with starting Timothy Eerie was, well, it was just for fun. And I had a couple song ideas, and I thought that the Timothy Eerie thing was sort of funny. And I showed it to a friend of mine that was a musician, a friend of mine that's a musician, that I was playing with at the time, and he sort of encouraged me to, like, I don't know, make it into something, try to play some shows. Um, and so he ended up being my drummer. His name is Mike Sitney, and we still play together. And he kind of gave me that push to make it into a band. The idea was, if I make this my moniker and the band is sort of just like me with other people that can step up and fill in and play the shows and play the tours, then I could always use the band would never break up if
Yeah.
I'm the band. Basically, it's like, what could go wrong? I feel like I could do that forever, and I could always put out music under this umbrella. So that was kind of the idea behind the moniker.
Yeah, it's super rad. What was the DIY scene like in Florida when you were starting out in those earlier bands until like transitioning into doing live sets with Timothy Eerie?
Um, Florida's cool because they're open to everything. There's all kinds of music here. There's rock and roll. We had some really cool garage, like Stooges influenced kind of scene going on. Um, Down in Miami, there's a lot of punk, um, but also there's like Cuban music, and there's reggae.
Yeah.
There's a lot of beaches, and
Yeah.
it's kind of all over the place. I mean, Limp Bizkit is from Jacksonville,
Oh
so
shit.
we got that. It's the music scene's all over the place in Florida. There's really not a lot of psych rock, but there are other bands doing this kind of stuff, and it's cool to come across them. It's made it a little bit easier for us to get hooked up with bigger touring bands that might come through, because really, when it comes down to it, we're one of the only bands I think around here that are kind of like psych rock, and so we're
Yeah.
able to like connect with bands that come through Florida pretty easily, probably easier than it would be if we were in New York or LA, I would imagine, where there's a lot more stuff like this. So the music I was playing before Timothy Eerie was more shoegaze, I would say. Um, which is kind of, probably not too far off, right?
Yeah, for sure. There's some dope psychedelic shoegaze artists out there too that like mesh the two.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of crossover.
Yeah, for sure. In the same sense too, like when I first discovered your music was through the outlet Melting Trends up in New Jersey.
Oh, nice.
And I noticed that you like played some shows with Wine Lips up there, and then like dove into like the whole like Green Witch recordings, and found
Cool.
that label. It like reminded me a lot of Greenway Records, if you're familiar with them out in Brooklyn.
Yeah,
Uh,
totally.
how'd you get in touch or involved with Green Witch?
Well, a lot of this stuff happens through social media. Um, they were following me on Instagram, and so that was that. We hadn't really connected personally, but towards the end of 2022, I came to realize I was like sitting on an album. I mean, a lot of stuff that I recorded during COVID, and some stuff that I had recorded before that and after. Um, Basically, just had a lot of songs that were unreleased sitting on my computer. And I decided I wanted to try to put out another album, and I basically just reached out to Greenwich. Um, the uh, the guy who runs Greenwich, his name is Mark,
Hmm.
and he was just really receptive the whole time. And he's been just really helpful in the whole process. The new album that we're gonna come out with on their record label just got mastered, so we're basically finalizing the artwork and trying to set some release dates, but it's looking like it's gonna be maybe like late summer, early fall. Um, but essentially, based off the social media connection, I reached out to Greenwich Recordings in an email and just asked him if I can send him some of my songs.
Oh,
And it was really actually just as simple as that.
yeah, super organic. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Seems like a really chill vibe, similar to Harry from Greenway. Someone who just really likes the niche of like psychedelic punk and wants to like create some sort of like physical copy of that record in sort of like that psychedelic vein of like keeping it colored records and like pairing it with really cool artwork.
yeah. I think that labels like Greenwich Recordings and Greenway, I think they just want to create a platform for bands that they like.
Yeah, true. Mhm.
It's not they're pretty independent. It's not like they're looking for the next big thing. Necessarily, it's just like they know what they like, and I think they want to help those bands maybe just like reach a bigger audience, or have a more sustainable project. I don't know. It's really like collaborative where it sort of feels like we're helping each other, and it's a pretty mutual relationship in that way, or symbiotic. and
Yeah.
and yeah, it feels like it comes from like a good place,
Mhm.
really pretty authentic place. So I appreciate all those guys that do stuff like that.
Yeah, it's real. Because when I first got into interviewing psychedelic rock bands, and because that's the types of bands I was interested in graduating college, I would interview bands and like try to talk to them about like the psychedelic scene as if it was like one big thing. But I've found it's like just like niche little pockets across the world and the United States. But like a lot of those little pockets are like hella influenced by like little record labels like Greenwich or Greenway. Or out here in LA, there used to be one called Lollipop Records that was pretty sick. That I think they're still around, but that's super cool too. Like since you're in that area of Florida, you've been able to open for artists like Kika Moyo and uh, We Intend to Cause Havoc. How are those kind of experiences opening for bands like that level?
It's amazing. We played with Kikagaku Moyo. I want to say it was like a little bit before they really blew up. Um, I remember driving home from a gig with my band, and I was like, "Yo, you guys got to check out this band, Kikagaku Moyo. They're from Japan. They're really cool." So we're like listening to them. I checked my email, and we like in that moment. got the offer to play with them.
What the fuck?
It was pretty surreal, yeah.
Some synchronicity.
Yeah. Uh, it's crazy. I mean, we've got to play with a lot of bands that I genuinely am a fan of. Um, and it normally works out pretty well, and they end up being pretty like down to earth people. Um, it's not always the case, uh, but for the most part, it seems like people like in the scene and the bands, I don't know, they're cool and they're good people. Um, yeah, it was amazing to play with Kikagaku because they got really big after that, and they probably reached a point where we wouldn't necessarily um be playing in the same ballpark as them after a certain point, but it was great. They totally deserved all that. Um, and there's a couple bands we've been able to play with a few times, like Frankie and the Witch Fingers, Acid Dad.
Oh, hell yeah.
So uh, it's nice. Like you kind of connect with these people more. I'm super inspired by all of them, and actually came to have Vaughn, the guitar player from Acid Dad, work on the album that we just finished.
Oh shit.
And I think that probably all happened because we played with them a couple times and just got to talking. So he
Mhm.
mixed the whole thing. And yeah, totally, yeah, just grateful for those connections I've been able to make.
Mhm. Super cool.
Yeah. Um, but how did you get started doing interviews?
I was actually a radio DJ when I was in college. So I was like a journalism major and a radio DJ, and I wanted to be able to like link the two and then still be able to do it post college. So I started CVC with some friends from college as like a multimedia platform to like basically involve any type of creative, not just musicians, but anyone who's like a visionary. We wanted to help provide a platform for them to showcase their work or collaborate with other visionaries. But I was
Where
super inspired by like psychedelic rock a lot in college because at that time bands like Frankie and the Witch Fingers and like Froth and Levitation Room were just starting out. Like I
Okay.
remember like Kruangbin was like at the time like less than like 2,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. Like they were still hella underground, and it's been pretty beautiful to see like that wave of like psych rock bands, even like Babe Rainbow, like get some like national recognition, or like King Gizzard. They're like cult status now. But yeah, just being able to like go out there and like actually document like DIY culture from the perspective of like a musician, because I make music too. And yeah, like Desert Days is where it originated. It was like
Oh,
the
okay.
I would say it's like the biggest psych rock festival in North America. Hmm.
Yeah, I love that festival. The first time I went, it was in Joshua Tree
Oh hell yeah!
at this really wild place called
Was it the
the
Institute of Metaphysics?
Yes.
Yeah, I got to go in 2017. That was my first year I ever went.
Okay.
It was still in Joshua
Yeah.
Tree.
We were we were there. Yeah. It
You
was
were there with the year Iggy Pop played.
okay, no, you know what? I retract that statement. Iggy Pop was not there. I wasn't there when Iggy Pop played, so maybe that was a different year. But either way, that venue was incredible. It was so mystical and
Yeah.
man, it was something else. But I love where they're doing it now too. I think it's like Lake Paris or something like
Hmm.
that. Would love to get involved with those guys one day. But love going to that festival though, nonetheless.
Yeah. Yeah, they're great people. They actually used to throw little showcases at South by Southwest too. I don't know if they did one this previous year, but that's how I discovered like Acid Dad and the whole Greenway scene.
Oh, nice.
But yeah,
So
it's
do you keep tabs on labels like Greenway Records, for example? Like basically anything they come out with, you
ki-
go and check it out?
Kind of like not really. It was like kind of synchronicity moments to where like Desert Days I'd follow stuff, and I saw the Acid Dad was like on one of their lineups. Checked them out, and then like fell in love with their music and started learning more about Greenway. And then at that time, Greenway was still like really underground to where they pulled up to Desert Days, and me and my friend Danny got to like interview Harry, their owner. And it was like the first time he ever got interviewed about Greenway, so
Oh
it was
wow,
cool.
that's wild.
So we've been like friends with Harry since like their origins, because it was before he even signed like Frankie and the Witch Fingers. It was like he had Acid Dad, and then I think he was like just starting to work with Frankie and Triptides. But
That's so sick.
yeah, from there, it was similar how I found your music too, just learning about Greenwich recordings and that whole community through Melting Trends.
Okay, nice. Another really good band that's on Greenwich Recordings is called Pearl Earl.
Oh yeah, yeah, I've seen them in LA before. They
Nice.
open for Vinyl Williams occasionally.
Okay, right on.
Yeah, that's tight. Are they from
Mhm.
the East Coast too?
I think they're from Texas. I remember playing with them when we were on a tour with La Luz.
Oh hell yeah.
Um, that was like in 2018. We went with La Luz to New Orleans. Pearl Earl played, and and then when I lived in Austin, I would always hear about them. People would always tell me to check them out. Um, that may have that may have also been part of the reason why I reached out to Greenwich Recordings. I saw that connection, and I thought, maybe that would be a good place for us to sort of land as well.
Yeah,
Everything is
it's
like
real.
everything is so interconnected with
Yeah,
this little genre of music, I think.
for sure. Especially all the little like, because there are other festivals like Desert Days in other states that try to bring the psychedelic bands together. There's this one up in Seattle called Freak Out Fest.
Nice.
They have their own record label too called Freak Out Records. Um, but yeah, that whole it's cool to see little scenes like that and communities helping each other out because you see how interconnected everything is.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, I've really come to realize that with music, um, my goal is to just kind of be a part of that, be a part of this scene. I feel like we already kind of are, and I would like to get even more invested in it, you know. With the music that I listen to and the music that I like to make, I don't really see it crossing over into the mainstream, and that's perfectly fine. I don't listen to the radio, and I don't really
Yeah.
know a lot of bands that are out right now unless they're kind of making stuff like this.
Hmm.
And so, I just love this like circuit of desert days and levitation, like freak out
Yeah.
stuff. Like that's all I want is just, to stay in that little bubble.
Hmm. And I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of those labels and communities like Desert Days have made it to where niche bands in that scene can actually like make it sustainable and go travel to Europe and other places, even outside of the US. Because actually, like from what I've heard from other bands too, like Europe just like really likes rock and roll still. So like even at them seeing that you're an American band like on a flyer, they'll just pull up because you're an American band. But then they really like appreciate the psychedelic rock too there.
Right. Well, rock and roll is, I mean, that's American music. And so Americans going to other places in the world playing that, there's like an authenticity to it. It's like if you see a reggae band from Jamaica, like that's lit. But if you
Mhm.
see a reggae band from, Florida or like Alabama or something, it's like, I don't know. It's not the same.
Real.
So yeah, I mean, I get it. We've never played in Europe, but I've also heard that they're super into psych rock, and we get messages from people um, from Europe all the time saying that we need to come over and play. It's just I haven't really figured out the logistics of it, but it seems like it would go over pretty well if we did. So
Yeah,
hopefully that'll happen eventually.
hell yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Mertzel here is actually out in Sweden in Europe right now and gets to check out like the DIY
Oh,
communities
really?
and study abroad.
That's amazing. Hi, how's it going?
Good. Very interesting conversation so far.
Thanks. Um, yeah, Sweden in particular looks beautiful. That's where you said you're at?
Yeah, we're in Sweden right now.
Nice. Check out the slopes.
No, unfortunately not. I didn't actually. Kind of regret that, but good.
That's cool. Well, have fun.
Thank you.
Yeah, the Gothenburg scene was super dope. I got to go visit her a couple weeks ago, and we got to check out a punk show out there.
Nice.
It was a lot different than like the Stockholm experience. It was like more like it reminded me of New York City, and then like
Really
Gothenburg's on the west coast of Sweden, and it reminded me of San Francisco a lot.
wild. Is that where you're based in?
I'm currently based in Los Angeles right now. Mm,
Got you.
yeah, it's been pretty cool, honestly, seeing like the difference between the different scenes. Like that's what we try to do with our magazine and everything, is to help cast a light on different DIY scenes, mainly across California, and now we're starting to venture to other states and countries.
That's
Mhm.
rad. Y'all are doing the Lord's work.
Fish. How was that experience actually in Southwest by Southwest this year?
Yeah, South by, it was, man, it was incredible. That was the first time we've ever gone and played it, and I'm definitely trying to go back. It's a trip. I've been recommending it to anybody, whether you're a musician and you're trying to play it, or you're just a fan of music and you want to go, because I believe it's got to be the highest concentration of bands in one city
Yeah.
at anywhere in the than anywhere in the world. It's really incredible. It kind of just feels like everybody you pass by in the street is in a band, and there's just like a lot of really cool free shows to go to. Got to see the OCs like 3 times, which is like such a blessing.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was totally inspiring, and Austin is a great town. I basically lived off of tacos for like 5 days, and it was great. Um, yeah, I'm hoping we played a lot of really good shows and connected with a ton of new people, made a lot of new friends, and I'm hoping that next year we'll be able to land some even better shows.
Yeah, that's awesome. How did they go about like choosing shows for you or showcases to play?
So I have a little bit of a network out there. Um, got a lot of friends living in Austin. Everyone was very helpful in regard to just helping us find shows, find promoters. We've toured there a handful of times. I feel like we've sort of established ourselves a little bit, and so we just kind of know a lot of people. And like as you know, that's sort of what it comes down to is like who you know. And um, yeah, I'm grateful that at this point there's a lot of people in Austin that have at least heard the name Timothy Eerie, or seen us at some point or listened to us, and that really made it easy to get booked. So
Oh yeah.
I think just from having some contacts and um, really doing all the legwork of sending out emails and staying on top of it, we ended up with like 5 showcases, which I think was the perfect amount. You could really burn yourself out there and play like 3 gigs a day, and it's probably
Yeah.
not a fun time, but we played just the right amount, I think, and
Oh
yeah, it
yeah.
turned out great.
That's super cool to
So
hear. 'Cause
were you like playing house shows over there or just like the festival itself?
We missed the deadline to be official artists at South by. Um, So all the shows we played were unofficial, but they weren't really house shows. Some of them were sort of DIY though. Um, shows pop up everywhere during South by, and a lot of them are like not traditional venues. So you end up playing at some like crazy places, warehouses, front yards. We played at a barbecue restaurant, ended up being sick. Um, so I've heard that the older South by scene was a lot of house shows, and the last show that we played when we were there was at somebody's house in their front yard that on a stage that they built. Um,
Fire.
Played that one with Nolan Potter too,
Oh shit.
and they were great. All the other bands were great. That ended up being one of the most fun shows. It's like you can get the official shows and you can play at big venues, but there is something sort of special about just playing at somebody's house and
Yeah.
playing to the neighborhood. So yeah, it's pretty magical.
Fuck
South
yeah.
by, yeah, highly recommended. I think y'all would love it.
Yeah, it'd be so fun to go cover.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
that's why I was thinking of like I heard you say like, oh yeah, I recommend it, and I'm like, okay. But I think the tickets are like really expensive, so I guess you could just go and then expect to find some dope
DIY shows.
or something like that,
Hell yeah.
like a
Yeah,
mecca or something.
That's so
I
sick.
I think you can get away without paying for anything. Like there's a ton of free stuff going on. We didn't have tickets, um, but there were like too many things to do, you know. Even without tickets, it's like you're just going from one place to the other, and it can almost just be exhausting. Like there's an insane amount of things to do. It's pretty nonstop. Y'all should definitely check it out.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, it sounds so cool because there's like the people that are playing the official festival, and then there's like everybody else that just kind of goes there to see what's about. And so I could see that being like a really dope like mixing of backgrounds from wherever anybody's at.
Facts. That's so
Oh
sick.
yeah, totally. I'm not exactly sure when this is going to be coming out. I'll plug our shows that we have coming up. We have we're playing in St. Petersburg, Florida tonight with a band called Zeta, um, which which are very good. We're playing next week with Wine Lips in Jacksonville at the Walrus. That's on May 4th. These shows may have already they may already pass. I'm not sure by the time this comes out. I'm not sure what the timeline is. The following day we're playing with Modu Mokhtar,
Oh
and
hell yeah.
that's at the Social in Orlando, our
Fire.
hometown. Yeah, stoked for that. And then we have a couple other things coming up. We've been getting asked to play with a lot of really cool bands lately. We're playing with Acid Mother's Temple later in May.